Greetings all, and today I'm going to show you how to do an H1 conversion to H4. Now the reason I'm doing this is because H1 is just a single filament globe, whereas an H4 has got the high beam and the low beam in one globe. Now you're wondering why I would want to do that. Well, with some bikes, or a majority of bikes these days, only one headlight will work as your normal light, and then the other one works as your high beam. So you're going down the road and there's only one light working at a time, which is pretty dumb. So I'll show you what I mean. Now you're going to need to bear with me here, because I actually have to turn the bike on to get the lights to activate. It just won't happen unless the motor's running. So what you'll see is when I turn the bike on, that light there will come on. Not this one, only that one. Then when I put it into high beam, this one comes on and that one goes on at the same time, or stays on. Now you might say, oh well, why don't you keep it on high beam all the time? Well, it's a little bit different because this one is dimmer than that one. So you have one bright light and one dim light. So it doesn't quite look as good. What I want is to have uniformity between the two headlights, and the only way to do that is to convert them to H4. So I have two that can be on low beam, and then when I want to, both on high beam. So bear with me, I'm going to turn it on, you'll see this light come on, then I'll put it on high beam and you'll see what I mean. So what I'll do now is I'm going to take the fairing off and get to the headlights, and you might need to bear with me here because this will be the first time that I've taken this fairing off. So I'm going to be learning how to do this one as I go along, so it might take me a bit of time, but I'll get there. Okay, let's do it. Okay, so I have access now to the headlight, and what I immediately noticed is that this is not your typical H1 globe. H1 globe uses the body of the headlight as an earth, and then it uses just a single connector here on the back for the positive. So this might be another H type of globe, but it's definitely not an H1. So if I take that off, and I also notice that this will integrate well with the H3 that I'm using. Sorry, H4 that I'm using. It's very similar sized plug to what I'll be putting in there. So that is not an H1 like I thought. It's very close to an H4. So you guys might know, so if you do, just drop down there, but it's probably something like a H3 or an H7 or something weird like that. But in any event, it's still only a single filament. But that makes my job easier because this H4 won't need a lot taken off it to fit it in there. And what I'm also thinking is I went with a standard incandescent globe because I thought that I would not be able to get an H1 in there because H1's really small. But now that this is bigger, I'll be able to get an LED in there, which is what I really wanted. So this has just got a lot better for me. Hopefully you guys have got the same sort of globe as well. But yeah, the only reason I bought the incandescent is purely because of the size of the body on the H1. Alright, well I'm not going to go any further. I'm going to go down the auto store and I'm going to get me an H4 in LED. Alright, I'll be right back. Okay, so I've just gone down and grabbed an H4. So the body of the light will go in there, but the body is too big here, but the body of the globe will go in there. So that is a win. So what I need to do now is I need to grind this down to the same shape as that. Alright, so I'll do some measuring, then I'll get into it. Let's go to the workshop. Right, something else that I did is I took out the headlight assembly. I will remove it off this fairing if I have to work on it, and I think I might have to. Now, I'm not sure if you can see in there, there's that little metal piece that actually goes in and then terminates. Now what that does is it takes the light and it pushes it back onto the rear of the lens as like a diffuser. You might be able to see it a bit better here. It's that little rectangle thing right there inside. Now that is stopping the globe from actually going in. So I'm going to have to modify that slightly I'm probably going to have to go down and then bend it up and around, and it's easily removed. There's a single Phillips screw holding it in, so I'll have to do that as well. So for now, what I will do is I will put you on time lapse and I will start grinding this down so it fits in there, and then we'll take the next step. Right, here we go. Okay, so they're both in. I was able to retain those diffusers, if that's what they are. I would have to have split the headlight in order to like remove the lens from the back body if I had to get those out. So I'm glad I was able to sort of push them in there, and they sort of wedged them out a little bit. But what I'm going to do is I've got a battery sitting over there. I'm going to hook those up and make sure that that light is ample, and then get the back on the bike, wire it up. So give me a minute while I test this, and then I'll meet you back at the bike. Okay, so I got the headlight assembly back onto the fairing, and while I was at it I replaced the two Parker lights with LEDs. Now while it's off, it's going to be a lot easier to work on. Set this down here with the fairing off. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to unpick all this, and this one here, peel the boot back, and then I know that on this one there was a headlight, this one was the high beam. So if I just quickly go back here, I actually have 3 wires going here. That is really weird. There should only be 2. I wonder if I've got the same on this. And I do. So I think that there's another wire that is just sitting there doing nothing, and that is a high beam. Now if you have a multimeter, no, there's only 2 on that one, and there's 3 on that one. Okay, so like I was going to say, if you had a multimeter, there we go, they've just put 2 wires to that. Alright. Weird, but okay. So I know that that there is the earth. Black one with the yellow is my earth, and that red one with the yellow stripe is low beam, and this red one with the black stripe is high beam. Hoping you can see that there. Just let me check. Yep. Now if you had a multimeter, you could put your earth anywhere on the chassis, and then you could put the positive, or the other side, the positive, into here, turn the light on, and then you will see exactly what's going on. So you would do the same with this. Just peel that back. You know what? I could probably keep these 2. I should be able to unpick one of the wires in the other connector. I should be able to put a screwdriver down there and just pop the little tab holding it in, and then I could slide that out and just slip it in there, so I don't have to replace the whole thing, which is what I'll do. So I know that that is low beam, that's earth. So what I do is I pop this one here out. I'm going to pop it into here. I'm going to run that over to here, and this one here, I will take that out, stick it in there because that's high beam, and then the one that I run from here over to here, I pop in here because that's low beam. So looking at the back side of it, earth, low beam, high beam. Because this light here is the high beam light, I put that into here. because this is the low beam light. I put the new high beam into there, run it to there. So I hope you got that. It's pretty easy. Earth, low beam, high beam. If you need to work your wiring out, multimeter, check it, put it on, turn the ignition on, bring your low beam up, see which one energizes. You know that that one is your low beam. Put it on high beam. If the one that didn't do anything energizes, you know that's your high beam. Pretty simple. You can't really go wrong. So I'll put you on time lapse and I'll start doing this, but all I need to do is just run one cable over there and then one cable over to here. Piece of cake. I'll use this original loom here and I'll just tape the extra wiring to that and it should be okay. Cool bananas. Going to get it happening. Alright, so before I nip it up, I make sure that everything's working well. So when I turn the light on, the two Parkers should come on, and they should be a lot brighter now because I put LEDs in. Then when I start the bike up, both lights should come on, and then when I flick the high beam on, they should go brighter. Don't need it, but okay, well, there's a little problem. I checked my wiring, everything is perfect, but what's happening, I just went and bench tested it with that battery. What's happening is because the positive 12 volt for the light stays on even though the high beam comes on, the LED isn't flicking over to high beam. So I put the two cables, I put positive and negative to here, and then when I tried to initiate, I jumped a lead from the positive on the headlight to the positive on the high beam, and nothing happened. So that LED's got a circuit in it that prevents it from going to high beam when the low beam is on. Now this wouldn't happen if you had an incandescent globe, because there's no electronics there, but the LED that I'm using has a function in it that prevents it from going to high if that's energized. Now all is not lost, so what I'll do now is I will use a relay to send the power, switch the power from positive, or from, I'll say low beam and high beam. So what I'll do, oh Jesus Christ, I'm getting too old for this shit. Oh. So as long as that's positive, the relay won't do anything. But as soon as this becomes positive, the relay will flick over and it will kill this circuit here. So I'll set the relay, I might set the relay up here somewhere, but that just means I need to rewire this section here, which isn't a biggie. It's just going to take me another half an hour or so. So yeah, that's what I'm going to do to defeat this. And like I said, if you use an incandescent globe, you're not going to have this issue. But the problem with using the incandescent is that this circuit here probably doesn't allow for 2 headlights on high beam and low beam at the same time. It might be too much of a current draw on the cable that's already here. And I'm having a look at it, it's quite light gauge. It's probably about a 50 or a 0.50 or a 0.75 mil. So yeah, that could be the problem if you use an incandescent. So what I'll do is I'll, off camera, screw it, I'll go, yeah, I'll put it on time lapse and I'll create that little circuit here with the relay. And then I'll test it first before taping everything up, and then once I'm happy with it, I'll put it on and hopefully we'll get a result. Well, we should get a result because that's the only thing holding me back. Everything else, everything's wired up properly. So that's the only thing that I can bring it down to, or put it down to, is when I bench tested it, it did that dicky little thing where both couldn't come on. Which shouldn't be an issue because LEDs, sorry, I just had a Coke. LEDs don't draw as much power as the incandescent. So I don't know why that feature is in this particular light bulb. So yeah. Oh, fuck me. Anyway, I'm dribbling. I'll get into this now. Okay, so here is the relay circuit that I created, and there's the wiring. So if it's on low beam, it's open like this, and as you see, when it goes to high beam, you'll see that this moves up there. Alright, so when I energize by going to high beam, low beam, high beam, low beam, high beam. So as soon as this wire here cops, the hell, as soon as this wire here cops any voltage, the relay switches over and then kills the low beam. So I will show you what I've done here. Now what I'll do is I'll grab another relay. Hang on a sec. So you can see it a little bit better. Not sure if that's going to be too bright. Hopefully you'll see it. This is really bad for macro, this. But essentially you have, let's try it over here. Damn it. Just hope you guys can read this. So you see this little block here, that's the coil. So one side's going to be positive and the other side's going to be negative. It doesn't matter which way, okay? It does not matter at all. It's just a coil. And what happens is when that coil energizes, it sends this down to here. So as long as you have these two doing nothing while it's on low beam, so you have one going to earth and the other one goes to your high beam, alright? Then you put your voltage 12 volts through here, and then when it's on low beam the circuit is closed, and that there is your output pin for your low beam. Now when you go high beam, this energizes, the coil snaps this down to this pin here, and then the voltage coming in then turns to this pin, and that pin there is connected to your high beam. So I hope you follow me there. And that disengages this one. So as you can see, it's just like a little rocker. When that coil energizes, it pulls this down to here. That's no longer being energized. So the voltage, instead of going to this pin, when that snaps shut, it goes to this pin here. So that pin there will be your low beam, and because the voltage is there all the time, you make that your input voltage. When your high beam goes to high, when that energizes, you make the coil the positive, and then this is still energized, of course, because low beam's energized all the time. It then diverts the power to here. So I hope you understand that. That's pretty much the only way that I can really explain it. Constant negative to the coil. Hook the other side of the coil up to your high beam. This one is low beam all the time, and that's your low beam output. When it goes to high beam, this one then becomes your high beam output. So it's fairly simple. Hopefully you'll get it. But you can always do what I've done here. So this battery is always here, it's always for bench testing. So there's my low beam here, power going in. High beam, you hear the click, that's just that relay energizing. And when I was explaining to you before about these pins, I said that this pin here was high beam and that pin there was low beam. When I checked it out, it's the other way around, because it wasn't making sense to me, because when I started messing around with this, I noticed that it became brighter up top. So that tells me high beam. So what I did off camera is I just moved this pin from here in the plug on the bike. I moved the pin from there for high beam to here. So earth, low beam, high beam. So that relay there is pretty much ready to rock. Right, well, as you can see, it's getting dark. I started this pretty much late in the day. I wasn't expecting this to happen, otherwise I would have had it done by now. So I'll come back in the morning and continue exactly where I've left off here, so I won't even move the camera. And next time you see me, it'll be daytime and I'll be getting back into it. Alright, here we go. Okay, so we have a result. I'll start the bike up, it'll be in low beam, and then I will switch over to high beam. So there we go. It was a little bit more involved than what I originally thought, mainly because those LEDs wouldn't operate at the same time, but I found a workaround and hopefully this helps you. So well, what I might do is I'll just do a little bit of a extra showing you exactly what I've done wiring wise. So hang in there, I'll get this bike nipped up and I will show you what I'm talking about. So there's one other thing you need to sort out before you put all this back together again and right away. Because one headlight was set high beam, it's actually up higher than the other one. Now you have two adjustment screws here. Now one of them will operate the left-right aspect of the beam, and the other one operates the upper and lower aspect. So the one which was high beam is naturally going to be up higher, so you need to actually bring it down. So you just mess around with your two adjustment screws here to bring that beam down to the same as the low beam. Now normally what I do is I would park the bike up against a surface or close to an area where there are horizontal lines. Then you turn the lights on and you'll see the lower one and you'll see a higher one. And what you do is, while it's facing that, and make sure your bike is actually on a center stand or paddock stand, and then that way you can adjust the light to bring it back down to the other side. So that's another thing you need to consider before you shoot off, because like I said, one will be higher than the other one. So just mess with those adjustment screws before you nip everything back up. So what I'll be doing is I'll be putting the fairing on here, and that'll still give me access to the back of the headlights so I can do the adjustment. So just yeah, don't forget to do that too. Okay, so I'm going to try and explain what I did with the relay. So here I have a positive low beam, here I have positive high beam, and here I have ground, which is negative. Now over here we have a relay. Here is the coil to the relay. So on the relay you need to have a positive, and then you need to have a negative. So the negative side, I'll connect it to here. Now this low beam, what I've done is I've chopped that wire completely. So now here's the low beam headlight. I'll chop this one completely, and that is now your high beam headlight. So with this low beam, on the relay itself you have a common, and then you have 2 pins. Now this relay here, well, this coil here, what that does is it swings a contact from here, which is normally closed, and this here is your normally open. So what that does is, it's when you energize this, it pulls the coil, which switches this over to normally open, so it closes this circuit. Otherwise this circuit here is completely closed. So what I've done is I've taken this, which is always a constant positive, because this headlight does not shut down, that stays on. When you flick your high beam, only then does this one energize. So what I've done is I've taken this constant 12 volt, and I am now powering this pin, which I believe is number 30. That is your common. That's called the common pin because it's the common denominator between these two contacts here. Let's just put it that way. So that's constantly 12 volt. Now on this normally closed circuit, this one, because the voltage is coming here, the contact has this one, I have taken that and I've joined it to here. So the low beam is on. So as soon as you power up, there's your low beam. Your voltage is constant, so it keeps going here. So that contact is closed. Now with the high beam, what I've done is when I chopped this, I sent this to the positive of the relay. So then now what happens is when I flick on the high beam, it energizes this coil here, and it pulls this contact over to here now. So it energizes this contact here. That I have now joined up to this one here, which operates the high beam, and because this circuit now is closed, well, open, there's no power going to the low beam. So all your power now goes to your high beam. So hopefully you'll understand this a little better. Now you have these 2 pins here, I believe are 87 on normally closed and 87A on your normally open. So that's basically all I've done, is I've just taken the power and routed it through the relay to the high beam. So if you do buy a relay, you need to make sure that you buy a single pole, which is this double throw relay. There's your 2 throws, 1, 2. So on the underside it should look like this, and what that is your coil, positive, negative, your common, normally closed, normally open. So that's what you need to buy. That's about as best as I can explain it, but if you go through this a couple of times for me explaining it, you'll understand exactly what I've done. So hopefully this has helped you. So there we go, job done. Well, I'm super stoked with the result, because not only do I have 2 headlights now, which doesn't look like I have a busted headlight, I now have double the illumination at night time, which is an added bonus. So if you guys end up having the issue with your LED globes where the high beam won't energize if the low beam is energized, then follow that little relay diagram and that will solve your problem. So that's it for this, and enjoy guys. Took me about 3 hours, so basic tools, 3 hours, you should be able to get it done. Alright guys, that's it, done, and stay safe out there. Enjoy. Later.